Next level.
This is an 03 BMW 325i, has a 2.5 engine, 5-speed in it. I bought it wrecked, front end was all wrecked up. I replaced some body panels on it. I put the new wheels on it, which didn't fit on the body. They are 19 by 9s in the front and 19 by 10 inch in the rear. So I actually had to fabricate my own rear fenders for it. The bodywork isn't perfect yet, but it's getting there. The whole idea for this car for this year was to have a car that runs that I could get the summer out of. Take it to some meets, have some fun in, put it away over the winter time, and build the engine. And I have another 2.5 liter engine that I got out of a parts car that I'm building. I'm stroking to a 3.0 and I'm putting a turbocharger on it. It has some body damage, the rear fender, some rust holes that need patched up. It's mostly surface rust. I have actual other rockers and parts to weld in and fix it up. Then it's going to be painted a BMW M Special Interlagos Blue.
So how far gone was it when you first picked it up?
I picked it up for $500 from a guy down in McKeesport.
Wait, let's back up. How much?
$500.
$500, and it had an engine in it?
It had an engine in
No
it
kidding.
with one of the spark plugs completely stripped out of the head. So I had to heli coil the head to get it to run. It didn't have a clutch in it. I couldn't move it at all. Sometimes you can pop the clutch and get them to move. Didn't run at all. So I trailered it home, heli coiled the head. I just couldn't get that engine to run right. So I got on Facebook Marketplace.
This is a recurring theme with every video on the channel. So I
Yep.
got on Facebook Marketplace.
Good old Facebook Marketplace. I found another BMW. It was like an 04, 05 something, no title, but it was an e46, exactly like this chassis, for $350. Ran and drove.
You're still
But
under
no
a grand.
but no title. It was shot. The frame was shot. Subframe was tore out. It ran, it drove, but it was not safe to be on the road. But it
Wow.
had a motor. I go to pick up the car for $350 from this guy's house, and he points at this other e46, another black one, exactly like mine. He points over at it and says, "The thermostat just went in that. Toss in another $500 and that one's yours as well." So I bought two more BMWs for a little over $800 to add to this one.
But you can quit anytime you want, right?
Yes.
It's not an
yes,
addiction.
It's not an addiction. So now I'm sitting on 3 BMWs. I'm like, okay, well, I can't get this one to run right with the motor that I fixed. The head was probably shot. Took the head off. It had the heli coil. It was garbage. Took the motor out. Decided to turn that into a coffee table. I've always wanted an engine block coffee
Are you gonna
table.
send me pictures of that?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. We
Straight-
need to see that.
Straight 6 engine block coffee table. Issue I'm having is how can I weld steel rods to an aluminum block? So I took the motor that was out of that black one with the thermostat, put a thermostat in it, put it in this one. Because I come to find out the silver one that I had bought with no title only had 60,000 miles on it. So that's the motor that is currently on the stand getting built. I used that other parts car to repair the front end because it was the same black, same everything. Put the hood, do the headlights, new rad sport and everything. The culmination of those 3 cars have manifested into this.
I guess we should also point out that this has only been a little over 12 months.
Yeah, when I first got this car, it was in January of last year, and I knew nothing about cars. I had maybe done one oil change on my Pontiac Sunfire once, and I did a couple brake jobs for my dad. Beyond that, I did not know what I was doing. Everything that I knew was from just watching other YouTube channels sometimes, or just talking to buddies. My cousin who was real into cars, he would teach me a lot. I started hanging out with my one buddy, Mike, who owns a garage, and from there is just when everything kicked off.
So what made you go in that direction anyway? What made you want to build a project having not worked on cars before? Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Why do we all do this to ourselves?
Yeah,
Right?
I always say a drug addiction would probably be less expensive. When I was 12 years old and the original Need for Speed Most Wanted came out for the PlayStation 2, and it had that BMW M3 GTR. I played that game, that BMW, you could play with it. I fell in love with that car. I said, I will have that car one day. I'm never going to have that car because they only made 10 of them in the world. But an E46 M3 is my dream car, and I've always wanted to build one. Pretty much video games that got me into wanting to build the car.
No kidding.
This car itself has gone in several different directions. When I first got it and I was deciding what I could do with the motor with it not running right, could I go LS swap? Yeah. I actually built an LS motor to put into it, and then eventually I sold it because that just wasn't the route that I wanted to go with. It was a 5.3 LM7 that I had built. I cammed it, did headwork to it, put bigger springs and whatnot in it. I was sitting on like 400 horsepower, and I'm like, I want to stay true to the BMW platform with the straight 6 M54.
Well, you got two other ones you could do something with.
True.
Right?
Very true. I went with Rev 9 coilovers for it, and they're, don't get me wrong, for the price that they are, they're rated top in class for their price range, right around $600. They're a good coilover, but I want to get some good BCs or something like that. Kind of patchwork together a custom exhaust for it, like I said, just to get it through summer. I wanted something to just enjoy through the summer. I had my car, I wanted to drive it. When I get it put away, I'll do an actual, probably stainless steel 3-inch exhaust with maybe some Borla mufflers, which I have on my other car. I love the sound of the Borla XR1s, one of them on my other car, so I'll probably put 2 on this. Keep the true duals. I did the brake upgrade. They're Detroit Axle brand. They're a good brand. They make good OEM spec parts. They do what they're supposed to do.
Tell me about the wheels.
The wheel is a 5x120, which is a standard BMW bolt pattern. They are Bremer Craft style 360s off of a E92 M3. That's the next body style after the E46. It's the 2-door because the 4-door was the E90. The 2-door was the E92, and the convertible was an E93. The fronts, they don't rub, they fit perfectly fine. The fitment looks good. The backs, the fenders I had to cut out. I didn't even bother with rolling them because I set the wheel set 2 inches out of the fender. There was no rolling that over the wheel. So instead of making the wheel fit the car, I made the car fit the wheel. With one of my other BMWs, the E46 Flare facelift, they made 2, the pre-facelift and facelift. The facelift came with a wider, a more pronounced flare. So I cut the flare off of one of the other ones and welded it to the back and made it fit. The body is pretty much done. Just got to fix up some of the surface rust spots, and then she's in for paint.
Are you going to paint it?
I am.
Nice. Have you ever painted a car before?
I've not painted a full car, but I've painted body panels in practice.
Yeah.
My buddy like I said, he owns a garage. He does insurance claims, that kind of stuff. He's teaching me. And having those 2 other cars has made it good to practice painting.
Do you foresee this ever leaving your hands?
No.
You got so little in it, really. People think you need a lot of money to start, and you bought a car for $500.
Yeah.
And here it sits, and you drove it all summer.
This car, I love it. I had an E36 last year that I drove all summer. I loved it. It was BMW, and I'm a Beamer guy. I drove this car for the first time, immediately fell in love, and with all the stuff I've done to it, I could not see myself ever getting rid of this specific car. I want this car, once I'm done with it, to last and be able to hand it down.
If you had to guess, sitting here right now, how much do you think you have in it?
Before the engine swap, I've probably got about $2,500 into it. No.
And after the engine swap, which came from that other car, which you had, what, 500 more bucks there?
Yep.
You're still probably less than $5,000 when it's all said and done,
At
right?
this point, yeah. The most expensive part of this engine swap is going to be the cams. I found a set of cat cams. They're about $1,000. I'm not going to say it's a true budget build, but I'm building it on a budget, plain and simple. I upgraded to the M-style taillights. I did the quad M-style exhaust, which I did have to modify the bumper for. I had to cut some slots out from underneath. There's like a flare under there. I had to cut it out to make it fit. I also had to cut the rear wheel well out of the trunk. And as another little ironic twist, as a car that's going to be turbocharged, I welded in a 25 speed limit sign as my floorboard.
What made you think to do that? You needed something
I needed a floorboard, and I found it buried in my backyard.
Come on.
I was working on a retaining wall for my garage, and I looked over and I saw something sticking up out of the ground. That is a speed limit sign embedded in my yard. So I picked it up. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Here we are a year later. I'm like, I'm going to use it as floorboard for my fast car.